Oh, and welcome to another live edition of the Cyclone Insider podcast and live stream. I'm Travis Hines. He's Randy Peterson coming to you on a Friday morning after Iowa State's 90. Oh, I got 92-37 Grambling. I grabbed the wrong box score. Iowa State's 25-point win over Iowa in the Cyhawk game. An absolute, complete, thorough beatdown by Iowa State over their rival, Iowa, on Thursday night at Hilton Coliseum. Randy, I mean, right from the jump, Iowa State went inside. They absolutely dominated play with Tre King and Rob Jones, which would have not been probably the duo that you would expect to lead the offensive charge for Iowa State in any game. But those guys did it. They were efficient, they were physical, and they were the absolute – the game was over at halftime because of those two. And, obviously the supporting cast around them getting them the ball in positions to score.
It was clear, and I think you said it very early to me, that Iowa is, that this could be a bad game in the interior, but with Iowa a bad a meltdown, a pounding in the paint, which it was. Iowa State at 46-18 points in the paint. Okay, I can see that against whomever, Grambling State or somebody like that. But against a Power 5 team or Power 4 or whatever you want to call it, or we'll call them now, but against a team like Iowa, a Big Ten team like Iowa, that's often known to be somewhat physical, at least in the middle, and at least have somewhat of a post presence, to do that, to outscore them in the paint 46-18. That was beyond my belief, beyond my comprehension. Iowa certainly was soft inside, and I thought it interesting that we heard in the post game. I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Rob Jones that said they went into the game knowing that, or maybe it was Trey, one of them two, saying that we knew that would be a place where we meaning Iowa State, could exploit, and by golly, they did. It was incredible the way Iowa State dominated in the paint.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's threefold. One, the scouting report, the game plan by the coaching staff was, peerless. And again, that's one thing. To go out and execute it immediately and almost flawlessly by the players is another thing. And then a third thing for Iowa not to either adjust or have, the wherewithal to get more physical inside with those two guys, or to switch up their ball screen coverage, was a failure there, to adjust to what was happening immediately. And Iowa State just took advantage of a weakness. I mean, I think it's as simple as that, because everything that happened afterwards was kind of playing out the string. I mean, Keshon Gilbert had a great game, but it was almost an afterthought to me, just because of how dominant Iowa State was on the interior, immediately getting out to that 20-point lead. I think it ballooned to as many as 32. Iowa cut it to 20 around, I think, the 8-minute mark of the second half. And you're like, okay, like maybe if they go on an epic run here, they could make it interesting. And that never materialized. And so to me, the game was over, probably by the 4-minute mark of the first half, because of how good Iowa State was on the interior. And I don't know how sustainable that is. I think, if your offensive options are Tre King and Rob Jones inside going forward, I don't think that's going to be the game plan. I think paint touches will remain the game plan. What I was impressed with too is that it wasn't just, it wasn't like back to the basket traditional post ups. That was part of it, but it was a lot of their work in the pick and roll. It was a lot of really good interior passing, where an Iowa State player, whether it was one of those two bigs or a guard, would draw a second defender, and then they'd immediately find the guy that was open in the interior. So again, it was really, really impressive game from Iowa State offensively, both strategically and from an execution standpoint. It was just really high-level basketball. I mean, I don't think you can give Iowa State enough credit for, really playing a great 40 minutes and having a great 40-minute plan that they were able to execute.
Here's something that we noticed very early last night. I think I pointed this. I mentioned it to you that Iowa State had shot something like 12 free throws, 12 to 15 free throws before Iowa even shot one. And that's not about officiating. That's got nothing to do with officiating. That was all about, like going back to what we've been saying for the last 5 minutes. That's all about in the paint. Iowa State, like you said, Iowa State's first option is to get in the paint. And and last night that paid off. We knew that Iowa would eventually get to the line, which they did. But by the time they did, they was pretty much out of whack, and Iowa State had stamped, had put its flag down inside the paint that we're not going to be budged. This is our paint, and we're going to own it. And they did it throughout the game. I was thinking to myself about possibly a little bit of a letdown, maybe in the second half after having that 18-point lead at halftime. It wasn't. There was no letdown in the second half. They kept up the perimeter shooting. They kept passing the ball. They kept running, and more importantly, they kept up with the paint, and they kept to their plan of getting to the free throw line. I mean, it was as close to a perfect game as I've seen Iowa State play in a long time. And sure, there are probably moments, and TJ mentioned a couple last night where he can go back on the film and say that this is on the video and say, this is what we have to do better the next time. Sure, there's stuff, but there certainly wasn't a whole lot out there that TJ could criticize. He did mention what Keshon's behind the back pass, but I rewatched that a little bit this morning. That's the only way he was going to get that pass there. But anyway,
I mean, that was their best possession of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, like the pass and the finish was the cherry on top, but it was really, you get a turnover on the other end and you come and you make extra pass, penetrate, dish, bucket. I mean, it was as good as you can do it. And I don't think Iowa was fully engaged at that point defensively, because I think it was a 20-point game with 4 minutes left or whatever. But, that's as good as it gets.
And, and so Iowa State's now 7-2. They got 4 games left. They got a chance to win 11 games in the non-conference, which is right on par. They were 12-0, the non-conference. The first year, I think they were 9-2, 9-3 last year. They could win 11 this year. That's pretty darn good for this team. And then heading into January 6th at Oklahoma, because that Big 12 is going to be a grinder. I mean, it's everybody knows that. We've written that ad nauseum. You don't have to write it. You can just watch it on TV and just see it. People can see it. And Iowa State is there's no bad games anywhere. There's no bad opponents after the next 4 once the calendar turns. So going into the final 4 games of the non-conference season, which are bye games against teams that are averaging what I have figured that out, averaging number 2. They're averaging 283rd in the Kim Palm ratings. So I mean, they should be relatively easy games. Iowa State can get the momentum going to Oklahoma, and we'll see what happens during the Big 12 season.
Well, and before we dive into what's next for Iowa State, I don't know if it means anything, but I think it's worth noting that this series has kind of been lame, going on almost a decade in terms of how good the games have been. It's now been 7 straight that have been decided by double digits. 3 of the last 4 have been decided by historic margins. Iowa set the all-time series record in 2020 by winning by 28. Iowa State set its all-time record by winning by 22 years ago. Breaks it last night by winning by 25. It's just not been competitive. And it's, our colleague, Mike Halas from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, I thought brought up a good point.
Very good,
in the post-game press conference, that even the team that gets shellacked in this game hasn't necessarily been indicative of them being bad. I mean, like there've been teams that have gotten their butts kicked in this game and gone on to the NCAA tournament. Now, that Iowa State team that lost by 28 at Carver 3 years ago, that turned out to be a historically bad team, but otherwise it hasn't always been. I mean, the 2018-19 team that lost by 14, like that was a damn good team that won the Big 12 tournament. That was ranked, I think, in the top 5 at one point before kind of sputtering to the end. But there's been some good teams that have gotten whooped in this game. And I mean, you go back, it's been even so the 2017-2018 game was 6 points. And then before that, it was 14 points. And then you had the great 83-82 game in Prohm's first year, which we won't talk about that game. That's bad memories for you, Randy. But like this game has not been very competitive for going on damn near a decade. Like, is there anything to make of that? Like in terms of the makeups of the teams, the matchup, the home court advantage that these teams have, the timing and the schedule. I mean, it is what it is, but it would be a lot more entertaining if these games were competitive, but they've just been ass kickings more often.
I think it's probably a little bit of all, but what about the timing of the rosters also? Iowa didn't look great against Purdue either. Now let's not forget that.
I mean, I don't think this is a great Iowa team, but like speaking more generally for the last 10 years.
That's where I'm headed with this. Yeah, and TJ's done a great job getting into the portal and getting the players that he knows that, or he thinks can fit their system. But and I don't know whether there's probably a little extra juice for both sides in this game, depending on where the game is. I mean, yesterday, they let the students in 2 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours. I don't know what it was before the game. And by the time the Iowa players were coming onto the floor, just in their sweats or just to shoot around, just to have something to do after arriving at the arena. I mean, it was no holds barred. I mean, it was the students were in rare form. They'd been lining up. They lined up for the women's game the night before. So I would think that the Iowa State players, yeah, they were a little juiced. Like Keshon said, this is the first time he played in any environment like this. So I think you have to give some credit to the crowd as well. But nonetheless, getting back to your point about the last however many games being double digits, that's really an anomaly that I think it's just a whole number of different factors are involved in that. I would hasten to say that I can't imagine Iowa State's victories once the calendar turns. I would hasten to say that there will be more. There won't be as many double-digit wins as there are, like this. So certainly there won't be. So yeah, it was. I think there's a whole array of factors behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more interesting than anything. Yeah. I don't know that I can have an answer either, other than like it would be, I think, a lot more interesting for both fan bases if these games were competitive. But it leaves one very happy on either side of the divide every other year for the last 7 years or so.
One happier,
but I think like the one, the one thing that stands out, I don't know on the negative side of the ledger, but certainly something that people want to talk about is Omaha Baloo's minutes. Did not get in the game on Thursday night, played only 6 minutes, none in the second half against DePaul. The former 5-star McDonald's All-American obviously came in with a lot of expectations this year and has now not played double-digit minutes in the last 4 games, a DNP coach's decision last night. We didn't ask TJ about Omaha last night. I asked him about it on Friday when he only played 6 first-half minutes, didn't get into the game in the second half. That was largely a blowout late, and you would have thought they could have gone back to him, same as last night. I think it's worth reading what TJ Otzelberger had to say. on Friday night, because I don't think anything has probably changed from Friday to Thursday. Here's what he told me when I asked him about it on Friday night. Omaha is a freshman. He's an unbelievable young man. He's a guy that cares about his teammates. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to make the right play. He's just got to keep working. Those opportunities will come regardless of what expectations were coming in, regardless of anything that was before. Omaha is a terrific young man. He's working every day, and if he keeps working, he'll continue to improve, which I know he'll do, and more opportunities will come his way. Which, like, if you want me to translate coach speak, and also just, I think everybody who uses their eyes and has watched Baloo play in these first games, just not ready to help them win basketball games. I think the game right now is too fast for him. And he's, the turnover he had against DePaul, some of the plays that he's had in the last few weeks, he's not a player ready today on December 8th to help Iowa State win high major basketball games. That can change. That can change by January 6th when they open Big 12 play. It could change in a week. I mean, he's a young kid with a lot of talent and a lot of physical gifts. But I think the bottom line is he's not ready yet. And Iowa State is trying to win basketball games, and they're trying to go to a third straight NCAA tournament. You don't really have time to bring along a guy that is not that when you have other guys that can help impact winning more. And again, like, my impression of a situation like this generally, not specifically this situation, but generally, when you get a high-level recruit, a local kid, and you want more of those in the future, you have a lot invested in that player's success. And if you can play him, you will. And I think this is a situation right now where Iowa State, if they're trying to maximize their ability to win basketball games against high major opponents, he's not helping them do that more than a guy like Rob Jones or anybody in the rotation right now. Demarion Watson got early run on Thursday night. There's just guys ahead of him right now. That's my thoughts on the situation.
Yeah, well, that's a lot to unpack, Travis, and I can't disagree with anything that you said. All I can do is just embellish a little bit or add to it. What we've noticed him when he did play. I didn't. You were at DePaul and saw it firsthand, and saw. We like to watch body language, and I've not noticed any bad body language. I'm not going there.
Zero whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't my situation. That wasn't my point. But my point is also that he gets lost on defense sometimes, and he gets out of sorts sometimes on offense. And yes, like you alluded to, that's probably has a lot to do with the game moving faster. But he's not played the kind of structure that TJ has been successful with. And that wins, that leads to success at high level major college basketball. Put him in a pickup game or in a game where there's no set plays to run. He'll score you 40 points a game, obviously. But and on the expectations, this to me is another of those instances, and there are not many of them, but there are some, where his statistics, high school statistics, get in the way of the star system, the website star system. 5-star guy. He probably was in high school, but sometimes that doesn't project to college. And I think we saw this, the FIBA, the under 19 team. Sure, they picked him. Sure, he was a McDonald All-American. How do you not have somebody like that with those kind of stats? But we saw with the FIBA games that he didn't play as much as what I thought he would play until I saw what was going on out there. Perfect example that he's behind in the speed of the game. Now I'm not saying that it won't click in. It will. I guarantee you. It will click in at some point. I'm suggesting that he could play if these next 4 games are blowouts, like I suspect they will be, I'm guessing he plays in these next 4 games. But it's all contingent on how he practices, how he came to practice this morning. If in fact they did practice this morning, I don't even know. But certainly how he practices between now and Sunday afternoon against whoever it is, Prairie View A&M. That's gonna go a long ways, because obviously the coaches watch that. However much you play, that's where it's going to start. It's going to start in the practice gym, and then it's going to eventually carry over to the games. And I do think it will click eventually, and maybe it's something about it, and you would know this better than I, Travis. Being a big man in college to me, I would think, would be a tough position to transition from high school to college. Because you're in there banging around with the guys. It's a lot about footwork. You're banging around with guys older than you, stronger than you. Like I said, it's about footwork. It takes a while. It absolutely takes a while. I'm not convinced that Omaha won't have a bright future in college basketball. I'm convinced that he will. It's just going to take time for it to click.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth remembering that, Balogun did not play a ton on the high-level sneaker AAU circuit, and he played his high school basketball primarily at Waukee. And in neither of those places are you probably running up against a lot of guys with his size, with his speed, with his athleticism. And now you get to college, and those things are still advantages for you, because I still think he has elite attributes there, but they're not the overwhelming advantage that they were when you were playing, Des Moines North or Ankeny Centennial or whoever else in the Des Moines metro area. And, whatever AAU teams you were playing on the non-EYBL, the non-gauntlet, the non-UA circuit. So I think, again, it's just a big adjustment, and Iowa State does demand a lot, certainly defensively, in terms of principles and second efforts and all the things that we've seen, them be successful. That stuff ain't easy to do. So again, I think it's right now it's probably all about patience, and that is, certainly not a virtue in huge supply in college basketball. And that's why you're not seeing him in the game. There's not patience for him to come in and feel his way out. I think, like, I've seen lots of people like, well, how's he supposed to get a feel? How's he supposed to catch up, when he's getting 2 or 3 minute stints? The bottom line is you don't have the luxury of letting a guy feel his way through a game when you're trying to win and the margins are thin and other guys are more ready. And so, to your point earlier, like, it's probably going to have to happen in practice and then slowly translate into the game before he gets, carves out a bigger spot or, reemerges in the rotation. But, that's, I think it is, the situation seems to be just that he's not able to help as much as other players. And again, I don't know that I don't think we need like a What's Up with Omaha segment on this show or any show weekly, but I think that's the situation until we see something change. And I wouldn't anticipate that happening overnight, because these things are usually a long process. Development is a multi-year lifetime process, obviously. But so that was the one thing I think people wanted to know, even in a 25-point win yesterday. But otherwise, Thursday night could not have gone much better for Iowa State. Now we essentially, you try to avoid disaster for Iowa State for the next 3 weeks with the 4 bye games, and then you got Oklahoma on January 6th, and then it's off to the races. It's the 2-month grind to solidify your place in the NCAA tournament. I think Iowa State has positioned themselves well, but that Big 12 is a son of a gun, as they like to say.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's number 1 in Kim Palm, right? BYU is in the top 10. Baylor's in the top 10. And I haven't even mentioned Kansas yet. So yeah, this is going to be a son of a gun. But look at it like this: if Iowa State can win 8 games, can win 9 games, they're a lock in anybody that wins 8 or 9 games in the Big 12 tournament or in the Big 12, I would assume would be a lock to be in the NCAA tournament at some, for some kind of a seed, because of the respect that the Big 12 will generate, because of what that will do for your analytics, which the the NCAA selection committee looks at. So, yeah, so I'm looking forward to the beginning of the Big 12, and like you said, get through these next 4 games without catastrophe, and see where this season can take us.
He's Randy Peterson. I'm Travis Hines. This has been the Cyclone Insider Podcast and live stream. Be sure, if you missed any of it, to check it out wherever it is you listen to your podcast, or head over to YouTube to see the video stream. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.